Hello, everybody. Welcome to this video of Turkish Shakespeares, which aims to celebrate the 100th anniversary of the foundation of the Republic of Turkey with a presentation on the origins of Turkish Shakespeare studies. The origins of Shakespeare studies in Turkey cannot be traced to a single continuous institution or school, because the integration of Shakespeare into the educational institutions coincided with a turbulent transition from the Ottoman Empire to the modern Turkish state. The origins of Shakespeare studies in Turkey are instead a multi-layered and palimpsestic continuity of many discontinuities. Yet rather than mimicking Western forms and contrary to other nations once part of the British Empire, the founding principles of Shakespeare studies under Mustafa Kemal Atatürk were largely anti-imperialistic. Accordingly, I will explore the origins of the academic study of Shakespeare in Turkey, concentrating on how the Republic of Turkey has continued and transformed the study of Shakespeare in Turkish academia. In the beginning, foreign and missionary schools used literature and Shakespeare to leverage their largely imperialistic agenda. These schools establishing Shakespeare as a cultural imperial icon designed to emphasize the superiority of the English tongue, literature, and culture. Among the most important British schools were those of the English High School for Girls, founded in 1857, and the English High School for Boys in 1905. Similar to the British schools, American schools, notably Robert College, established in 1863, were effective to utilize Shakespeare for both the cause of spreading Christianity and the Anglophone culture in Ottoman Turkey. Famous for its progressive and innovative curriculum, Robert College became an academic hub in Istanbul. In 1871, the American College for Girls was established at Gedikpaşa as a sister establishment to widen the college's aim to reach out to the Christian community in Istanbul. With curricular and extracurricular activities, the college became central in the dissemination of Shakespeare and establishing Shakespeare as an academic field in Ottoman Turkey. The study of Shakespeare in foreign schools to further a political agenda, however, was utilized later by the early republic to increase literacy in English language and literature and further the nationalized agenda of emancipating women in Turkey. While the primary aims of foreign and missionary schools were to convert students and their families to Protestant Christianity and create Anglophilic people, to expand the imperial control of their homelands over Turkish regions, these schools nevertheless had a positive impact on the quality of teaching of English language and literature in Turkey. Besides prioritizing the education of girls, foreign schools made significant contributions to fashion progressive Turkish women who became part of the modernization project initiated by Mustafa Kemal Atatürk in the first 15 years of the Republic. As an extension of this nationalization, the real rise of academic studies of Shakespeare in higher education started after the 1924 law on the unification of education, which centralized all foreign language learning schools under the Ministry of Education. Shakespeare was also put to progressive ends through the state-sponsored translation campaigns conducted by several institutions like the Istanbul Civic Theatre, which even distributed free copies of the translations, the Ministry of Education, and the Departments of English Philology in higher education from 1924 until the 1950s and beyond. The demand for experts in English language and literature in Turkey as part of the 1924 law necessitated the establishment of Turkish high school and undergraduate programs through which Shakespeare became central in Turkish academic studies through the Gazi Education Institute, the Faculty of Languages and History and Geography in Ankara, and the English Philology Department at Istanbul University. The Gazi Education Institute had many valuable scholars who were also highly influential in the study of Shakespeare in Turkey. Oxford alumni Saffet Dengi and Hadiye Sayron were two important female figures of the 1930s who shaped the study of Shakespeare not only at Gazi Education Institute, but also later at Ankara University. The two-year program of the English department at Gazi Education Institute was established in 1944 by Sayron, along with figures like E.V. Gatenby, John Bell, and Nanda Rahmi Karatay. The program eventually expanded and changed into a three-year program in 1962 and a four-year program in 1978. The initial course outline for the 1944 2-year program shows that Shakespeare was taught as part of the 2-year survey of English literature course that possibly made use of Halide Edip Adıvar's survey book from 1943 and other related sources that could be found in Ankara following the establishment of the British Council in 1934, and, of course, the Faculty of Languages and History and Geography in 1936. The most decisive development for the study of Shakespeare in Turkey was the foundation of the Faculty of Languages, History and Geography in Ankara in 1935 as a personal project of Mustafa Kemal Atatürk himself to promote the study of the humanities in Turkey. As part of this vision, the Department of English Philology was established in 1936 entirely by Turkish scholars like Hamit Dereli, Saffet Dengi, who became later Saffet Korkut, Orhan Buryan, and İrfan Şahinbaş. Among the many carefully chosen and hardworking students of the early republic, Dereli, Dengi, Buryan, and Şahinbaş were sent to English departments to study for their PhDs at the universities of Cambridge and Oxford and received their education from eminent scholars and literary critics like I.A. Richards and F.R. Leavis, who became to be known the forerunners of practical criticism. These young Turkish scholars applied the teaching methods of I.A. Richards with their own fascination with Shakespeare when they formed the curriculum of the 4-year undergraduate program. Possibly having brought the majority of the resources from their stay in the UK, the faculty's extensive library has even today one of the best and most well-preserved repositories of global and contemporary Shakespeare criticism from the 1890s onwards in Turkey, ranging from English, French, and German secondary works and multiple copies of individual plays that were functional and influential in both the studies and the research on Shakespeare in the department. Particularly, apart from the many courses that encompassed all literary periods and genres of English literature, the department, which had first a year-based structure, had in total 3 Shakespeare courses until junior level. There was one Introduction to Shakespeare course at freshman level, where students analyzed selected plays from Shakespearean plays and poetry line by line, and commented on their significance. 2 subsequent courses until junior level on Shakespeare analyzed each year a comedy or a tragedy from several viewpoints. Apart from being outstanding scholars at the department, which would become part of Ankara University in 1946, Dereli, Dengi, Buryan, and Şahinbaş contributed to the dissemination of Shakespeare in Turkey through other means as well. They taught at village institutes, a project that aimed to raise the intellectual level of rural people, and at the state conservative. They also delivered public lectures on Shakespeare, wrote articles and books on Shakespeare, and became founding members of the Translation Committee, the Çeviri Kurulu, where several of Shakespeare's works were translated for the first time into Turkish. Saffet Dengi's public speeches as a female professor were also revolutionary to illustrate the progressive gender roles that were quite beyond their time, when even in some European universities, Shakespeare was still reserved as a male domain. These scholars established Shakespeare as a bold and academic discipline and a means to spread progressive and humanist education within and without academia, with events and research that praised the public. İrfan Şahinbaş, who was renowned for dramatizing passages he taught in his Shakespeare courses and beyond, was also crucial in the establishment of the first theater department in Turkey in 1958 and 1964 that allowed Shakespeare to be studied from a different perspective than those utilized by the conservatories, especially through the eminent director Karl Ebert, who was also very influential in the studies of Shakespeare in Turkey. Dereli, Dengi, Buryan, and Şahinbaş have raised several generations of Shakespeareans in Turkey, through which their now conventional teaching methods have been well preserved and are used even in today's English language and literature departments. Interrelated with the nationalization and reformation in Ankara, the gradual transformation of Istanbul University expanded the use of Shakespeare in the higher education curriculum. When Halide Edip Adıvar joined the department and delivered the opening speech to the Faculty of Letters in 1939, and with a talk on Shakespeare, Istanbul University's subsequent emphasis on Shakespeare studies was firmly entrenched. Reflecting the progressive gender ratio in early Republic of Turkey, Adıvar shortly became the head of the Department of English Philology in 1940. When she formally established the four-year undergraduate program in the same year, the quality of Shakespeare studies in Turkey increased, especially through the publication of many critical secondary works on Shakespeare and his time by department members. Moreover, the department gathered and trained eminent academics in the 1940s like Vahid Turhan, Mina Urgan, and Berna Moran, all of whom either wrote full-length studies on Shakespeare and or translated his work to Turkish. The translation workshop resulted in the series Shakespeare Külliyatı, the Shakespeare collection, where several plays like Hamlet, 1941, As You Like It, 1943, Coriolanus, 1945, or Antony and Cleopatra, 1949, were translated into Turkish by Adıvar, her assistants, including Turhan and Urgan, and their students. The zenith of these efforts would result in a three-volume English language and literature survey book that had an entire volume devoted to Shakespeare and his works, which became the first thorough and in-depth academic analysis of Shakespeare written in Turkish. Along with the Gazi Education Institute and the Department of English Philology in Ankara, the Department of English Philology in Istanbul shaped the basics of the curricula, the canon, the pedagogy, and the methodology of the proper studies of Shakespeare in Turkey, the impact of which can be still felt. With the establishment of extensive studies of Shakespeare in Turkey, Shakespeare became a central part of the curriculum of secondary schools well into the 1990s, which have been influential in the cultivating even greater interest in the academic study of Shakespeare in Turkey. Nowadays, most students get their first taste of Shakespeare at university. Other successors like Mina Urgan and Cevat Çapan formed the next generation of Shakespeareans at Istanbul University. Engin Uzmen, Ayşegül Yüksel, and Özdemir Nurkulu, the last of whom they later continued to work at various universities in Izmir, became the leading Shakespeare scholars at Ankara University. Through the establishment of Hacettepe University in the 1960s and Boğaziçi University in the 1970s, more academic hubs were established within the English language and literature departments of these universities. With Engin Uzmen, who moved to Hacettepe University, Himmet Umunç, Bülent Bozkurt, and Gülsen Can. A great deal of scholarship about Shakespeare at Hacettepe University was shaped by these scholars from the 1970s onwards. Süheyla Artemel, Oya Başak, and Cevza Sevgen from Boğaziçi University were important figures that influenced Shakespeare studies in Istanbul around the same time. Starting with the 1990s, with figures like Talat Alman and Lawrence Rowe, the transcultural aspect of studying Shakespeare in Turkey was foregrounded. Along with Shakespeare's traditional position in higher education curricula to teach the English language and culture, over the last 10 years, new media have also been incorporated into the teaching of Shakespeare in most of the curricula of the now 200 English language and literature departments and dozens of theater departments in Turkey. Since the early 2000s, there has been much progress and change in the study of Shakespeare in Turkey through the incorporation of spatial, gender, racial, linguistic, translational, ecological, and post-human perspectives in these studies by both senior and scholars and early career researchers. Yet the obscure fate of the Turkish Shakespeare Association, the short-lived Center for Studies on Shakespeare and His Age at Hacettepe University, İnci Engin's meticulous but widely unknown account of Shakespeare in Turkish, and the several conferences on Shakespeare in Turkey, all of which have had relatively little impact on global Shakespeare studies, illustrate the opportunities that have been missed to further Shakespeare studies in Turkey. Learning from and building upon these experiences, the Turkish Shakespeare Project aims to both document and add to Shakespeare studies in Turkey through its ongoing digital archive of the Turkish Shakespeare bibliography and the performance history of Shakespeare in Turkey. Conducted by an overwhelmingly majority of female researchers, studies at the Turkish Shakespeare Project are also reflective of the overall progressive social agendas of studying Shakespeare in Turkey, a direct consequence of the origins of Shakespeare studies that have been utilized for the emancipation of women in early Republican Turkey. Building upon these origins, Shakespeare studies in Turkey have a promising future that demand attention by non-Turkish scholars as well. Thank you very much for listening to this talk. And this talk will be also published soon, which you can find in the link below. Thank you very much.